Hi, from the Dodge Sports Desk. I'm Mike Sherman, sports editor of the Oklahoman, and you're watching. You've got to be kidding me. Hi, hi from the Dodge Sports Desk. I'm sports editor Mike Sherman.
In stereo?
In stereo, where you're watching Press Row Live.
We really are live.
How about turning that dang thing off?
I'll turn this thing off. There. Hi, from the Dodge Sports Desk. I'm Mike Sherman, sports editor of the Oklahoman, and this is Press Row Live. Joining me today are columnist Barry Trammell, who sees Saturday night's OU-Nebraska game as one more giant step away from what was once a glorious college football rivalry. Columnist John Rohde, who will be in Stillwater Saturday for the OSU-Iowa State game, and he will discuss the Cowboys' bowl hopes. And columnist Jenny Carlson, who has some look on the bright side thoughts for Thunder and its fans. Jenny, let's start with you. For openers, the Thunder's loss to the Milwaukee Bucks, 98-87, I think, wasn't much of a game.
No.
But the game presentation, now that was something to talk about.
Yeah, and that was a question after the exhibition. I think a lot of people wondered, what's it going to be like to be in the arena? Well, for opening night, we knew it was going to be a sellout. So we knew there'd be a lot of people there. I really thought the game presentation was pretty solid. It may not have been as polished and really well done as what the Hornets did and what people came to expect with them being here. But I thought for an opening night and a crew that's some older, more veteran people and some new people, I thought it was really good. It seemed like fans were having a good time. And when the Thunder cut the deficit to I think 20 at one point in the second half, and the place is going crazy. I mean, people were clearly into it. I thought the atmosphere was really good last night at the Ford Center.
Well, guys, it looked like an NBA court again. In fact, I saw some things that were different. To me, the lighting seemed more dramatic. Didn't it look a little bit like the Lakers games at the Staples Center where it was dark on the fans and really lit up court? The court looked good. The music looked good. John, you like the band.
The drums. I do like drums.
I mean, they had this drumming band that drummed them onto the court instead of. I thought that was an improvement on the Hornets.
Yeah, I like the drums. First thing I noticed is right off the bat was they didn't use AC/DC for Thunderstruck. Now, this may be some lawsuit waiting to happen. Maybe AC/DC, there's some kind of surcharge. I'm serious. And it just jumped out at me, and I go, that's interesting. So they had like a remix of it or whatever. But, it's nice we're talking about presentation, but what goes on inside that lines, that wasn't so good.
Barry, what did you think of the whole show?
I thought it was good. I was a little pessimistic, but I thought all in all, afterwards I thought very good, and I thought it was excellent, really. And a couple of things. It seems like the Thunder still has sort of a desire to stay a little bit removed from anything the Hornets did.
Do not bring up the name Hornets.
Yeah, don't mention the word Hornets.
By the way.
But in other words, unless they did it while I was asleep, and I don't think I napped, I didn't see the kiss cam. I didn't see the dance cam. People love the kiss cam. They love the dance cam. Bring them back. Just because the Hornets did it doesn't mean the Thunder can't.
Everybody does it.
Everybody does it.
So the Redhawks do the
In fact,
cam.
they did a fan of the game or something, which was, I think, sort of a poor facsimile of dance cam. Just call it the dance cam and give the first guy to that first guy they showed, the big dancer, the big fat guy all dressed up dancing crazily. He deserved to be the winner of the dance cam.
And how about the other thing? I think the mascot is needed. I know it's not coming to win. January, when the Kevin Durant jerseys come on sale, then that's when the mascot will come. But maybe does Kiss Cam, Dance Cam, and the mascot, is that a package deal?
Yeah, it's a mini pack.
Yeah.
But all in all, very well done. I thought it was very good, and I think the fans got their money's worth, except of course when the ball was in play.
Mick, as master of ceremonies, I think handled that whole pregame introduction well. Jenny, you wrote about that. I mean, it seemed very, very Mick Cornett-ish,
Yeah.
you know?
You know what? He was as enthusiastic as I think I've seen him in a while. He was pumping his fists and, encouraging the crowd and pointing to the banner.
He
And
took off his mayor's hat for the first time in a long time, and like he was back at Channel 5. That's goofy on the third base.
At least he did high-five the commissioner.
He should have,
this
actually.
close to it,
That would have
probably.
been okay. I've been cool with that.
We got to cheer up Clay Bennett. He looks depressed.
Well, he walked, understatement. I mean, just always understatement.
He's understating his role.
And he walked, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Here's George Shinn, who got out there and talked to everybody. Clay's he's on the side stage, letting somebody else take the spotlight. And David Stern walked right into it and did what David Stern did. He had another delightful speech to Oklahoma City, welcoming them back. And I thought his pregame conversation or a press conference was pretty interesting, too, when he said what he told the players, which was?
Hey, this is something special. This is something you can tell your kids and your grandkids, so enjoy it. So, I mean, that's something we'd say, or fans would say. I didn't know that kind of speech would work on NBA players, but I'm not sure it did work on NBA players, but David Stern at least threw it out there to him.
Well, something else, just to talk about the whole crowd thing. I was sitting there listening in the first half and thinking, the crowd didn't come yet. But someone else pointed out to me, I don't think they scored on consecutive possessions in the first half. Kevin Durant and Jeff Green scoreless in the first half. Yeah. They didn't give fans much to build on. Now, it seemed like the fans, those who stayed, and a lot did, had a lot of energy when the game was over, which was why they were cheering them into the locker room. I mean, that was pretty interesting, the way fans were cheering them when it was all over. It reminded me of an OSU basketball game, and a way a lot of their fans stick around and say, that's okay, guys, you can do it next time.
Yeah. I think the longest stretch they had was 7 straight in the fourth quarter. Went from 18 to 11. Watson hit the only three-pointer of the game, I might add, and that got them to within to 11. And the crowd responded, and it's good. I mean, they feed off each other. That's definitely the case. So there wasn't much to cheer about, but when there was, they let it be known.
Yeah, I thought the fans stayed right in there, considering how out of it that team was for a good chunk of that game. They can't have Kevin Durant, Jeff Green, guys that they really key on, be as absent offensively as those guys were in the first half. NBA games, we know this, are not decided by halftime. But if you dig yourself that kind of hole to try to come back out of, especially if you, like you say, only have 1 3-pointer all game and you're trying to come back under those circumstances, 15-point, 20-point holes early in whether the first half or third quarter, you can't come back from them. You can't come back from them consistently. That's for darn sure.
I think it was Westbrook. Did I say Watson? It's somebody.
It was Westbrook. Now we're off the bright side and on to sort of the more realistic side. They were down 20 for a large stretches of the game. Guys, what, as you look at it, is there a fave 5 that you picked out? I mean, just a lot of fans are emailing us today saying, here's the starting 5 I would go with. Is there a fave 5 or a starting 5 or a good 5 that you think the Thunder should throw out there?
I really haven't thought about it. I know Wilcox should start. Collins should start. Here's the deal. We've been promising these people that they try hard. It was noticeable that which players were last night. And if all 5 are trying hard, then and then it clicks. But if only 2 or 3 out of the 5 are playing hard, then it just doesn't work. And in that regard, I would say Westbrook should start. Desmond Mason should start. Wilcox should start. Collins should start. And I don't know. Maybe, do we have a 5th guy who hustled last night? I don't know.
We're working on it. Hey, it seemed like, it didn't seem like PJ apologized for that in the postgame. Is that?
Well, yeah, he did. And here's the truth. And the quicker we say it and the quicker we all realize it and accept it, the better off we're going to be. This team stinks. They won 20 games last year. And the 2 big holes that led to winning 20 games have not been patched, which is center and point guard, which the last time I looked are fairly significant positions in the NBA. This team is not going to be any good no matter who he puts out there. What PJ is going to have to do is he needs to throw some guys out and let them get baptized. Russell Westbrook needs to just play. Put him out there, whether it's at point, or whether it's at number 2, get out there and let him play, and if he struggles sometimes, fine. I would put Johan Petro out there and find out how much of an NBA center he is. We need to find out. If you played the 5 best guys and got your just very best rotation instead of mixing and matching, it might mean you win 28 games instead of 24. Who cares? Put those young guys out there and let them grow and let them improve. This team is not about this season. This team is about future seasons.
Jenny, but isn't that also about giving the young guys a chance and some examples of hustle and some chances to succeed? That's why when you look at it, okay, Desmond Mason got the biggest ovation. And there's a reason for that goes even beyond Oklahoma State basketball. Yeah. When Desmond was here, he played hard all the time. Of course, he had great thunderous dunks. But also, Desmond gets out and runs. This team looks better when they're playing fast. And Desmond, So I'm throwing out a crazy idea, starting Desmond Mason.
I don't think it's a crazy idea. And I think the other thing that you have to think is that you don't have to have all your veteran guys in there at the same time or all your new guys in there at the same time. I think the mix and the match, I mean, Joe Smith, I thought, played really well for some stretches during the second half. I was way impressed by him. So get Russell Westbrook out there with Desmond. Get Petro out there with, heck, maybe put him out there with Joe Smith. I don't know. Sort of mix and match, get some veterans, get some new guys. Give those new guys a chance to see, man, when I'm on the court, I got to play like Joe. I got to play like Desmond. I don't think you have to sell out to the all-youth lineup all the time and have your old line and your young line. But mix and match, use Joe Smith, use Desmond Mason. Those guys, to me, are the two that if you want to say to your young guys, this is how we're going to play, watch those two guys, because I thought they both played really well last night.
Okay, I got a 5. Westbrook, who did not play in the first quarter. And geez, when the first quarter was over, what was the score? They were in a pretty big hole. He had energy, and the rest of the game, they play him even. I just think he's got to play and got to play a lot, 30 minutes plus. Maybe that ankle sprain had something to do with it on opening night, who knows. But it's not a time to play seniority. Westbrook plays. If it's like you said, Barry, if it's about the future, then the future begins now. Number 2, Desmond. How about Desmond in the backcourt? I know he's not a classic shooting guard, but do you remember when the team that we shall not name from the past came and played, and the coach of that team, he would always say, let's go. Desmond starts it because when somebody gets the ball, guess what he's going to do? Ching! Run down the court. The other thing is that way you move Durant off the 2 guard, more into a position maybe he's a little more comfortable with at 3. 4, you can go with Wilcox or you can go with Green, that's a small lineup. Does that work?
To some degree. Oh, yeah. Here's the thing about Desmond, and whether you start him or not, it doesn't matter. He needs to play a lot because of the hustle he does bring. I tell you who needs to get hitched up to the side of Desmond Mason and completely immerse himself in Desmond Mason culture, and that's Jeff Green. Watching Jeff Green, I think you realize here's a guy that's not going to be an NBA star. Jeff Green is not going to be an NBA star, even though he's the number 5 pick in the draft, and you hope he would be. He's not going to be. But he can make a lot of money and play a long time if he gets it in his mind, if I'll play like Desmond Mason, if I'll go out and do whatever they ask and play defense and hustle, I'm going to be valuable to a team. If I don't play like that, I'm taking up space. So Jeff Green to me, he's the project. He needs to become the protege of Desmond Mason.
You know what Jeff Green is on a real NBA team? He's a 7th or 8th guy. Mm-hmm. And that's not disrespect.
I think that's being very kind.
Oh, he's not even that high.
Well, I don't.
You're talking about a contender.
I'm talking about a playoff team. Yeah. If he's with the Rockets and he's 7th or 8th on that roster, he's a darn good player.
Mm-hmm.
On a contending team. He's not on a contending team. I think they see a higher ceiling for him. I think I've heard the name Scottie Pippen thrown around, but I don't see Michael Jordan around to sort of teach him that. So I think that is too high of a ceiling. But he is a skilled player. He is a clutch player. He found a way at Georgetown. Remember some of the clutch plays he made at Georgetown? But now all of a sudden he's got to stretch his game out. I remember Jeff Green being a big-time post player in college basketball, less of a perimeter player, and that's a heck of a transition. Maybe that is the case, hitching Desmond up to his side.
He's a utility guy, and that's what Desmond is. Yeah. So that's a perfect match right there.
Well, we could all do worse than to be hitched up with Desmond Mason. On to OSU. John, with Iowa State coming to Stillwater on Saturday, the Cowboy fans probably aren't as focused on the foe as they have been, or they were last week when they went to Texas, or 3 weeks ago against Missouri. It's Iowa State. Not so good, Cyclones. So now they've seemingly flown past bowl eligibility, which most years is what we're talking about. Can the Cowboys get to that magic bowl eligibility victory total? They've flown past that. Now they can start thinking about holiday travel plans. Where do you see the Cowboys? Where should they start looking for holiday travel?
They should go online about 10:45 Saturday night because the outcome of that Texas game could totally shake all of college football, and that includes Oklahoma State. They are getting the respect they've demanded and expected and sometimes not warranted. Well, now it is warranted. They're expected to win by 31, then win by 31. They didn't drop after losing to Texas, then show why you didn't drop. They're in it. They are right in it in every sense of the word. BCS Bowl, Cotton Bowl, those kind of bowls.
Barry, the Cowboys, as John said, this is a game where the Sooners have played, many of them, where a lesser foe's coming into town, and all you're expected to do is take them out of the game early, make it your own, and then get ready for the next week, which would be at Lubbock. How do you see the Cowboys bowl situation shaping up?
Well, I mean, to me, there's 4 huge Big 12 games left with Texas and Tech, with OU and Tech, OSU and Tech, and OU and OSU. All kinds of myriad options involving the outcomes of those 4 games. But John's right, OSU's in the running for anything. I mean, they could. I think the worst bowl they could probably land in right now is the Holiday. Mm-hmm. I don't see OSU dropping below the Holiday. Even if they lost to both Tech and OU, they would be 9-3, and I think that gets you to San Diego. But the Cotton is definitely in the mix. I think the BCS is in the mix. So I think it's going to be a great bowl matchup for Oklahoma State either way. What everybody wants, Cowboys, Sooners, everybody, is a Tech victory Saturday night, because that means that the Big 12 title is back in the mix for everybody. Of course, the great scenario that I think everybody in the state would be hoping for right now is a bedlam game for the South title. For that to happen, going to need some help, but it would be great if it happened.
What kind of help?
Well, Tech's got to win against Texas, and then Kansas would have to upset Texas for both OU and OSU to go in and have a chance to win. Because if OSU and Texas, if Texas wins out, I don't think OSU can't get in the mix.
Wins out after
Tech. Now, if it's OSU, Texas, and Tech in a 3-way tie, then it would come down to BCS. It just
then it comes down to Texas.
Yeah, and then Texas would get it. So I think if Kansas is capable of beating Texas. Texas has been on a great run, but eventually you can stumble. So Cowboys just need to keep going and not get off track, and they might get some help. It's happened with the Sooners from time to time. It's happened with Colorado in the north from time to time, squeezing in when they didn't think they had a chance. So don't let the Big 12 title is still out there for OSU.
Also, isn't it interesting how the schedule seems to have flipped for the Cowboys? Because when the season started, we thought, they've got the schedule's really against them. But now it looks like it's for them. They beat Missouri, then they had a week against Baylor. Then came Texas, now Iowa State, then before they have to go to Tech. Then after that, they have, now that Colorado's lurking, but before Bedlam, it's an open week. Jenny, the schedule's turned around for the Cowboys.
Yeah, and you know what? Talking about Texas Tech, I think their schedule is now, they're getting to the meat of their schedule. It's weird how this scheduling thing works, that you would look at Oklahoma State before the season and think one thing, and now it looks like, man, every other week they've got, sort of a down opponent, and then they have a big game. So I think if they continue to play like they have, even last week in a loss, Barry, you saw it firsthand, they played a great game. Defensively, offensively, really had an outstanding show. So just keep doing what you're doing. They don't have to go out and be anything they aren't right now, which is a pretty good place to be in. You don't have to go out and do something super spectacular to win these games. That is a great spot to be in. I think they're going Cotton or better. That's where I am. But it's interesting because the Cotton always likes highly offensive teams. Everybody in the Big 12 is. They could pick anybody in the top 6 and have a great opponent out of the Big 12. So I think Cotton's worst case scenario for Cowboys.
When OSU went to the Cotton Bowl, that was 2003, 2004. Weren't they an 8-win team that year when they went down there and played? No,
they had 9. It was 9-3. They were 9-3 Cowboys. That's
Mississippi. Eli Manning.
I think I like the idea of Cotton or better for the Cowboys right now. Now, Barry, on to the Sooners. OU and Nebraska are taking some great steps to try to restore what they deem as the class to the rivalry, but can they restore the rivalry?
Well, that depends on Nebraska. Here's the truth, and I don't know where we got off track, where people thought Oklahoma-Nebraska was this historic traditional rivalry that was all about all kinds of, abstract things. OU-Nebraska was never about anything except hardware. It was always about who won the trophy, the Big 8 trophy. And when the trophy's not in play, it wasn't a holy war. And It wasn't an in-state rivalry. It wasn't OU Texas or Texas Arkansas, some sort of clash of cultures. It was about who won the trophy. It was like 49ers Cowboys in the 90s. You know, people writing about what a great rivalry Dallas San Francisco was. It was a great rivalry because they were playing for the supremacy in the NFC. Same with OU Nebraska. If they're meeting year after year in the Big 12 title game, okay, that's coming back. But in terms of, being a Michigan, Ohio State or something, no, that's not what it is. It's about supremacy in the Big 8, and until things change, that's not going to occur in the Big 12.
Now, Nebraska under Bo Pelini, they're trying to bring. He's a guy who is more Bob Stoops, although some people question, is he John Blake? They haven't got off to the roaring start that maybe some Nebraska fans had wanted for. The black shirts, nobody gets to wear them yet. What do you think about what's going on under Pelini at Nebraska so far?
Here's what I like, and I agree with everything you said. Here's what I like most about Oklahoma and Nebraska. When Oklahoma was down in the 90s, Nebraska wanted them back up. And I sense that Oklahoma people want Nebraska back up. And it is about the hardware, Barry. And because if both teams are 5-3 and OU wins, they're not bragging about beating Nebraska. They're bragging about beating Nebraska if it's for the title. So the mutual respect, which I noticed as an outsider in Colorado growing up, I could sense it, I could see it. And then when I got here and I got to talk to some people who were in it, it is definitely there. And that's the cool part about Oklahoma and Nebraska to me.
Are you saying it's all about Kansas City or San Antonio, and none of these games, home and home, are really going to matter until we have some, annual meetings there, Jenny?
I think so. And that's why, I think for that reason you see, the ADs doing this reunion thing, and because the ugliness that's grown out of this rivalry in the last few years with the roughneck and all the court case there, and then the hillbillies comment, that was really not what this rivalry was about.
He didn't belong.
Yeah, and it was never about calling names or, there was always that respect factor there. So, yeah, I think that if you see a Nebraska-Oklahoma game and, 2 or 3 times in the next, say, 5 years in the Big 12 championship game, it'll be back on, and you'll be having people wishing that they were playing every year in the Big 12 instead of 2 out of every 4.
Interesting. Bill Callahan produced the only OU Nebraska. From the Nebraska side, he produced the only OU Nebraska Big 12 championship game, though. So, for all the things that, all the sins that he committed while in Lincoln, he was the only one who kept that into the bargain. So, but as far as restoring the class, Barry, they're going, as Jenny said, they're trying to get this, they're having a reunion of the 71 game of the century in Norman, an extraordinary measure. I guess it's the only time all these guys have been in the same place. Do you think that does restore the class to the rivalry?
Well, yeah, and you know what? I'm not sure that respect side and that class side ever went away, because when Callahan said what he said, it wasn't like all of Nebraska said, yeah.
No, they were mad.
They said, what's with this buffoon? In fact, that's one of the things that helped alienate people with him. So I think the respect thing's always been there. And I think John's right. When it was 73-21 and 69-7 back in 96 and 97, Nebraska fan. If OU beat Texas 69-7, they'd be, they'd parading through the streets. Nebraska fans sit around and think, man, that's not so good. What's wrong with those guys? They wanted OU to be better. He's right. So I think the class thing and the respect thing's always been there, and this will help. And I think it's a great thing. First time those Huskers have been back in Norman. There've been periodic celebrations of the 71 team from Oklahoma's side, but the fact that Nebraska's going to be here and 20 or 25 of the Huskers, along with 30-something Sooners from that team, it's going to be a great event.
Osborne will get a standing out.
Oh, it'll be great. It'll be a wonderful thing, and it'll help. Mold the rivalry back into people's consciousness. But the respect's always been there.
It's a fathers and sons or fathers and daughters moment too. It's a lot of guys taking their kids and grandkids to the game and saying now, and on the way home, they get to give the whole story. Just hope they get the right team winning. Sometimes that doesn't work out so well.
Here's the perfect OU Nebraska story, the way sort of people build things into something it's really not. You'll hear people talk about, I wish we could play on Thanksgiving again, and it was always played on Thanksgiving Friday or whatever. In the 70s and 80s, when that rivalry was in its heyday, 20 games in the 70s and 80s, only 9 were played on Thanksgiving weekend. I mean, but people think, just sort of, well, it was always. No, less than half the time it was played on Thanksgiving weekend. But we sort of build things up into what we wish they were. So, I mean, it's a wonderful old rivalry. But to me, it's not Bedlam. It's not OU Texas. It's not Michigan Ohio State.
And here's kind of an interesting thing. Did you know that the 87 and 88 OSU teams are being honored this weekend? I mean, and they're two good teams. They won the Sun Bowl and the Holiday Bowl, and hopefully Sanders will be back and Thurman Thomas. Haven't heard a word about it. Haven't heard a word about it. Sometimes tradition and success and history, it just blossoms, and as long as you embrace it like OU does and Nebraska does, it's a very special thing. It's a very special
It's
thing.
going to be interesting also how OSU observes the 88 team as things go on. One more question about the Sooners, though. And we talked a lot about sort of the rivalry or lack thereof, but there's a football game to be played. And what is it that's important about what the Sooners do Saturday against Nebraska, Barry?
Well, you got to win. You hold Nebraska to less than 17 points, because if you beat them 63-31, everybody's going to think the house is on fire. So just for everybody's peace of mind, shut them down on defense. But and when you reach November, just win. That's all that matters. No telling what will happen. We've seen it year after year in college football. It's way too early to worry too much about the BCS or worry about what bowl you might slide to or how you. Just win and see what happens.
The scoreboard watching, however, goes away from the SEC this week, and it's all on the Big 12. I mean, it's in Lubbock.
You know what would be the grandest thing of all time is if OU would just scrap its everything it is committed to on the big screen
And put it on.
Put Texas Tech and Texas on the big screen. And if they were playing a little bit less respected opponent, maybe they would do that. But they're not going to disrespect the Huskers that way.
Hey, guys, now for the toss-up question, and it was prompted by what happened last night. Lo and behold, the state's ambassador, Barry Switzer, had a date to the game. He brought Kevin Durant's mother. Barry, tell the story of that.
Well, I mean, Switzer gets on a plane in September to go out to L.A. to film his Fox NFL deal, and he's sitting across the aisle in first class from a woman who's regaled in Thunder apparel. And he said, Mama, you bought the whole store. And she said, well, my son plays for him. And turns out it was Kevin Durant's mother, Wanda Pratt. And they chatted. And when they went off the plane, she was off first, and she waited for him in the terminal and said, Coach, I don't know a soul in Oklahoma City. I wish you'd go to a game with me sometime. So I don't have to go by myself. He gave her a card, and this weekend she called him and said, "Hey, you want to go to the opener with me?" So
there he was.
So Switzer said, "Sure." And so there they were. And frankly, I got to tell you, not Kevin Durant, not the in-game theatrics, not the Thunder girls. The biggest buzz in the whole arena last night is, who is that woman with Switzer? So Switzer can steal any show in the state, and he stole that one last night. So I thought it was a fun thing. So
Switzer should have been recruiting college basketball players here about 3 or 4 years ago, or because somebody would have been in a Sooner uniform instead of a Longhorn. The question before us is, who should Switzer escort to the next Thunder game?
Better be his wife.
Who do you got? Who do you got, Jenny?
Well, we were talking yesterday when we saw Wanda and Barry come in together. We decided that the last time she was there, she sat by Danny Ainge, just happenstance.
I think he got in trouble for that.
The Celtics GM. Celtics are coming to town next week. Switzer should bring Danny Ainge. Why not?
John?
I'm going with his wife, man. Or I'm not going with her. He's going with his wife.
He should.
Barry?
Well, I believe in continuing the buzz. So I'm thinking, who could Switzer bring to the game and sit with courtside that everybody would be buzzing about? And if he's going to continue this situation of Oklahoma royalty, who could he bring? So I'm going to go with, and she could actually, we could have her sing the national anthem. She can even sing at halftime. Carrie Underwood. If Switzer came to the game with Carrie Underwood, we might not have a basketball game. We might. The whole place might just explode.
That's all for Press Row Live, folks.
Goodness.
But the debate and the conversation go on. For OU and OSU fans, it rages on BedlamNation.com, the state's only fan site for both sides of the Bedlam war. And for Thunder fans, give your opinions on the starting five and all kinds of other things at the new and best local NBA fan site, ThunderMadness.com. Of course, you can catch all the latest news and analysis with the best coverage team anywhere at NewsOK.com, NewsOK.tv, and every day in the Oklahoman.